It's a funny thing. Archaeologists can pull an 800-year-old leather boot out of a bog, and it's still flexible. Meanwhile, that leather jacket you paid a fortune for just 3 years ago, it's probably already cracking and falling apart. And this isn't just some weird fluke. It's a symptom of a much, much bigger problem. We like to think we've made all this amazing progress, but in some of the ways that really count, we've actually gone backwards. I mean, just look at this. When the power grid goes down, your modern super-insulated home can become a freezing death trap in less than a day. But a medieval log cabin, with absolutely no modern tech, it stays survivable for days. How is that even possible? And this isn't about being nostalgic, this is just about pure physics. It really makes you stop and ask a pretty uncomfortable question. What on earth did our ancestors know that we, in our mad dash for convenience and speed, have completely forgotten? We're going to dig into the lost principles behind their incredible resilience, and it all starts with a totally different way of looking at the world around them. So the first big principle was this. They weren't trying to conquer nature. They were trying to work with it. They were masters at understanding natural systems, and they used that knowledge to create technology that was both incredibly powerful and sustainable for centuries. The real secret to how they stayed warm wasn't insulation the way we think of it today. No, it was this brilliant concept called thermal mass. Instead of just trying to trap heat, they built things that could literally breathe it in, store it, and then slowly exhale that warmth for hours and hours, just like a giant thermal battery. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. A medieval castle's huge stone walls would soak up the heat from a single fire and then gently radiate it back into the room for more than 18 hours. Your modern furnace, on the other hand, has to burn fuel constantly. The second it shuts off, your house starts getting cold. You see the difference? One stores energy, the other just burns through it. And their genius wasn't just for heating. Look at power generation. A simple wooden water wheel could hit an efficiency of over 70%. That's actually better than some modern hydroelectric turbines. One little stream could power an entire village. Mills, saws, hammers, you name it, all without a single watt of electricity from a grid. This whole idea of working with nature's own properties shows up everywhere. The Vikings, for example. They didn't have chemical sealants, so what did they do? They used boiled linseed oil. This completely natural oil would soak into the wood and harden, creating this flexible, waterproof barrier that protected their longboats from the brutal Atlantic for centuries. We're talking about finding their ships 1,000 years later, and the wood is still preserved. Incredible. All right, so the second big principle is something our modern industry has basically declared war on: time. For our ancestors, you see, time wasn't a cost to be cut down. It was the most critical ingredient you needed to create something that would last, not just for a few years, but for generations to come. Just look at the difference here. Medieval vegetable tanning took up to 18 months. It was a long, slow process where tannins from oak bark would permanently bond with the leather's fibers. Modern chrome tanning, it uses harsh chemicals to get the job done in 24 hours, but in the process, it completely destroys the leather's internal structure. One method creates an heirloom. The other creates something that's designed to fall apart. And this dedication to slow, deliberate methods meant they could create products for the most extreme conditions imaginable. Take ship's bread. By baking it twice, they drove out every last molecule of moisture. The result was a loaf that was practically immortal. It could stay edible for over a year on a long sea voyage. It just goes to show you, patience creates resilience. So here's the crucial point. This wasn't just some artistic preference or a luxury. Building things to last, making food that wouldn't spoil, this stuff was a non-negotiable part of survival. For them, planned obsolescence would have literally been a death sentence. And this whole philosophy of slow, natural processes, well, nowhere is it more obvious than in their food. It was fundamentally different from the industrial stuff we eat today. Their food wasn't just designed to fill your stomach. It was designed to actually build and sustain a strong, hard-working body. Just comparing their bread to our bread tells a pretty shocking story. They used ancient grains like einkorn, they stone ground the entire kernel, and then they fermented it for up to 24 hours. This process pre-digested the gluten and made all the nutrients available. What do? We use modern wheat that's been bred for high yield. We strip away all the good stuff through industrial roller milling, and then we rush it with commercial yeast. We've literally engineered the nutrition out of our own staple food. So let's see what this modern creation actually does to your body. The glycemic index of a typical slice of white bread is 75. Now, that number just measures how quickly a food makes your blood sugar spike. Okay, now compare that to this number. This is the glycemic index for pure, refined table sugar. It's 65. Yeah, just let that sink in for a second. The conclusion is it's undeniable, and it's pretty unsettling. The thing we call bread, the supposed staff of life, actually hits your bloodstream with a sugar rush that's more intense than if you just ate a spoonful of sugar right out of the bowl. And this same story of just degradation applies to honey. What used to be a powerful medicine, raw, unheated, full of enzymes that could kill antibiotic-resistant bacteria, is now heated, ultra-filtered, and stripped of all its pollen and life. It's been transformed from a living food into little more than a dead sugar syrup. So what do we do with all this, right? The point isn't to say we should all abandon modern life and go live in log cabins. It's about recognizing that we've thrown away some timeless, essential wisdom. It's about reclaiming the principles that create real resilience, durability, and true nourishment. These principles are just as relevant today as they were 800 years ago. Working with nature's properties, valuing the slow craft that leads to durability, choosing food that is whole and real, these aren't backwards ideas. They are a powerful blueprint for building a much more sustainable and robust future for ourselves. And that leaves us with one last really critical question. Our entire world is built on speed, convenience, and things being disposable. But as we keep sprinting down this path, we have to stop and ask ourselves, what essential knowledge, what fundamental resilience are we trading away in the bargain? And is all this convenience really worth the price?